I was working on these most recent summatives and I came across this beginning of a paragraph that I think has some really good things going on in it, and I wanted to point out a place where the quotation could be woven more effectively into the exposition. So let's start by reading it. Hemingway uses hidden symbols comparing our protagonist Nick to his external environment. The author shows us the deep feelings of Nick's hardship without mentioning them. We can see the thin line which holds Nick from letting his emotions loose when he's fishing. And here's the quotation. Nick felt the moment when the leader would break if the strain increased and let go. Although the author gives no mention of anything relating to emotions in this line, we can see the comparison between the fishing rod and Nick's mental stability. As the strain increases on the rod from the trout, similarly, the strain increases on Nick from society. There is a potential for the line to break in either case. So there are some things that need to be fixed about this. And we're not looking at the whole paragraph, we're just looking at the first half of the paragraph. But I think there's so many things that are working really well here. So, for instance, this is a good topic sentence. This tells me what I'm about to read. Hemingway uses hidden symbols comparing our protagonist Nick to his external environment. So what I can expect in the rest of this paragraph is going to be about symbolism, and it's going to be talking about Nick in his environment. We can polish up the writing, but the topic sentence idea is correct, and it's there. This is the right quote. This is the right quote to use. And the writer is putting the quote in, he's plopping the quote down right in the middle where it should go, but it hasn't been set up properly. We're going to work on that, but I want to draw attention to the fact that this is exactly the right quote to use here. I love this part. We can see the thin line which holds Nick from letting his emotions loose when he is fishing. This is definitely moving towards elevated writing. This is absolutely good analysis. This is absolutely the right type of analysis. Although the author gives no mention of anything relating to emotions in this line, we can see the comparison between the fishing rod and Nick's mental stability. I love that the writer, the student writer, is creating this image in our head. It's recalling the image of the fishing rod and the line being taut, and being so taut, it's almost like it could snap, right? And there's a little bit after this in the story where, right after this, Nick feels this like anxiety almost, or he has this emotional response. He has to go sit down and have a cigarette. This is a really good analysis, and I love how he said more. The student here said more. As the strain increases on the rod from the trout, similarly the strain increases on Nick from society. There is a potential for the break. There's a potential for the line to break in either case. So it's a comma splice. We fixed the comma splice pretty easily, right? We'll just put a semicolon there for now. It's not perfect, but we'll fix it. Hemingway uses hidden symbols comparing our protagonist Nick to his external environment. We can talk about a comparison of Nick to the environment. I don't think it's really a comparison. I think it's something else. I think he's talking about Nick having this reaction to the environment. So we can say Hemingway uses hidden symbols. Symbols maybe is not the best word too. Why don't we say vivid imagery? To describe Nick's reaction to, and I don't think we need to say external environment, I think we could just say environment. How does that read right now? Hemingway uses vivid imagery to describe Nick's reaction to his environment. Maybe that's not perfect, but I think it's a good start. Let's move on. The author shows us the deep feelings of Nick's hardship without mentioning them. This, I think, could be polished up a little bit more, but I think it's a good enough sentence. We'll leave it alone for now. We can see the thin line which holds Nick from letting his emotions loose when he is fishing. This again, I think we could polish the sentence up, but we'll leave it alone for now because I think it generally gets the point across relatively accurately. Now, how are we going to introduce this quotation right here? First of all, we need to make sure that we have a citation. I don't know if it's actually page 6. We'll just say it's page 6 for now, though. I know that kind of defeats the point of the citation, but we'll fix that later. Nick felt the moment when the leader would break if the strain increased and let go. Let's take a look at the different ways we can blend a quotation. We know that the least powerful and the least frequent way is to use he says. I tap, danced, and twirled, I am the governor's son, right? So we could go back to do this, and we could say, Hemingway says, or Hemingway writes, Nick felt the moment when the leader would break if the strain increased and let go. I don't think that's really, I don't think that fits really well. Maybe we could use this one, using the colon, where we present the idea, and then we use a colon, and then we have the evidence, we have the quote. So we can set it up. There's already a setup there, right? We do the setup, and then we have the colon, and then we introduce the quotation that way. I think actually we should use this part right here. If we put a colon here, that works really well as a setup. So let's read it again from the beginning. Hemingway uses vivid imagery to describe Nick's reaction to his environment. The author shows us the deep feelings of Nick's hardship without mentioning them. We can see the thin line which holds Nick from letting his emotions loose when he is fishing. Although the author gives no mention of anything relating to emotions in this line, we can see the comparison between the fishing rod and Nick's mental stability. Nick felt the moment when the leader would break if the strain increased and let go. As the strain increases on the rod from the trout, similarly the strain increases on Nick from society. There is a potential for the line to break in either case. So I hope you see that this is getting better. It's not perfect yet. For instance, we need to have a possessive there. There's some repetition of Nick. I think we can polish up and we can make this more precise. Although the author gives, why don't we just say Hemingway? Although Hemingway does not mention Nick's motions, we can say explicitly, which means directly or clearly. We can see the comparison between the fishing rod and Nick's mental stability. We can see the comparison between the fishing rod and Nick's mental stability. I love that. I love that the student is seeing the image of the fishing line being pulled taut, bowed over with the fish on it, and then using that line. It's almost like if you plucked it, it would be like a guitar string. Bong! Using that line, that fishing line, to understand how tightly wound Nick is inside. We can get rid of some repetition here by using he, and it doesn't clutter it up too much. Although Hemingway does not mention Nick's emotions explicitly, we can see the comparison between the fishing rod and Nick's mental stability. He felt the moment when the leader would break if the strain increased and let go. As the strain increased on the rod from the trout, similarly the strain increases on Nick from society. There is a potential for the line to break in either case. Just for giggles, do we think that we could make it a woven integration? That's going to be my challenge to you. I'll put the blend here. And the writing warm-up is going to be to try to fix this paragraph even further using woven integration. I'm going to share this with the class, and we'll start with this video at the beginning of our next class, or maybe we make it a homework assignment. We'll see.